In the quiet, dense woods of Allenstown, New Hampshire, some secrets are buried deep, just waiting for someone to stumble upon them. But sometimes, what you unearth isn't treasure. It's a full-blown nightmare. In 1985, a hunter made a grim discovery that kicked off a decades-long manhunt for a killer who was more ghost than man. A phantom who moved through the world collecting names and leaving behind a trail of sorrow. The truth hidden inside a rusty metal drum was more terrifying than anyone could imagine, and it was only the beginning. On November 10, 1985, a hunter was walking through the woods near Brook State Park when he noticed something that was seriously out of place. It was a 55-gallon steel drum, and what he found inside would unravel a mystery that stretched across generations. The discovery of two bodies, a young woman and a little girl, was horrifying enough. But what investigators didn't know was that just 300 feet away, another barrel lay hidden, holding two more secrets. It would take 15 years for that second barrel to be found, and decades more to finally uncover the name of the man responsible. A serial killer who used so many identities to slip through the cracks of society that police would eventually call him the Chameleon. When police arrived on the scene back in 1985, they were completely stumped. The remains inside the barrel were skeletonized and wrapped in plastic. Autopsies showed they were a woman, maybe between 23 and 33 years old, and a young girl, likely between 8 and 10. Both had died from blunt force trauma. But who were they? With no ID, no matching dental records, and no missing persons reports that fit, the case hit a brick wall almost immediately. Investigators tried everything they could at the time. They put out sketches, hoping someone, somewhere, would recognize the faces of this unknown woman and child. But nothing panned out. The woman and child were eventually laid to rest in a local cemetery, their graves marked with a tombstone that read, "Here lies the mortal remains known only to God. May their souls find peace in God's loving care." For 15 long years, it seemed their identities, and their killers, would be a secret forever. The case went cold, a silent monument to a crime that was slowly being forgotten. Then, on May 9, 2000, the case exploded back to life. A state trooper, walking that same wooded area, found the second barrel. It was only about 300 feet from the first one, in a spot that was overlooked during the initial search because it fell just outside the designated perimeter. Inside this drum were the remains of two more children. Both were little girls, one between 3 and 5 years old, and the other between 2 and 4. Just like the first victims, they had been dismembered and wrapped in plastic. This changed everything. This wasn't a one-off murder. This was the work of a serial killer. The 4 victims, all female, were likely killed around the same time, somewhere between 1978 and 1981. The spot where they were found was near a burned-down store, a secluded area perfect for hiding a terrible secret. But even with 4 victims, investigators were no closer to knowing who they were or who put them there. The mystery just got deeper, and the 4 victims became known simply as the Allenstown 4. For another decade, the case would remain one of New Hampshire's most haunting cold cases. The first real break in the case didn't come from the New Hampshire woods, but from a totally different investigation out in California. The key was a man who used so many names that his real identity was a puzzle all on its own. His name was Terry Peter Rasmussen, but over the years he was also known as Bob Evans, Curtis Kimball, Gordon Jensen, and Larry Vanner. Rasmussen was a ghost. Born in Colorado in 1943, he grew up in Arizona and served in the U.S. Navy. After that, he just drifted across the country, weaving a web of lies and destroying families. In the late 1970s, he was living in New Hampshire as Bob Evans, and even listed a wife named Elizabeth, a woman authorities now believe was one of the Brook victims. His crimes did eventually catch up to him, but not for these murders. In 1986, he was arrested in California for abandoning a little girl, Lisa, who wasn't his biological daughter. Her mother, Denise Bowden, had vanished in 1981 and is presumed to be another of Rasmussen's victims. Years later, while serving time for that crime, he was convicted of another murder, the 2002 killing of his then-girlfriend, Unsoon June. He died in prison in 2010, taking his secrets with him. So, how did they connect him to Bear Brook? In 2017, DNA finally gave investigators their answer. The DNA of the man who had abandoned Lisa all those years ago in California was a match. He was the biological father of one of the Bear Brook victims, the middle child, the girl aged 2 to 4. Suddenly, the ghost had a face. The chameleon killer, Terry Rasmussen, was officially the prime suspect. Even with the killer identified, the victims still had no names. And this is where the story takes a fascinating turn, all thanks to a revolutionary tool: genetic genealogy. For decades, the victims' DNA was just a code, unable to tell anyone their names. But by uploading their DNA profiles to public genealogy databases, like GED Match and Family Tree DNA, investigators could start building family trees. They could find distant cousins and great aunts, people who had submitted their own DNA just to learn about their ancestry. It was incredibly painstaking work, led by a brilliant genetic genealogist named Barbara Ray Venter. Imagine trying to build a complete family tree for a total stranger, working backward through generations, just searching for a common ancestor who might lead you to the right branch of the family. It's like being a detective and a historian at the same time. For the Bear Brook victims, this was especially tough, sometimes involving the complex process of pulling DNA from single strands of hair, which could take a month for each sample. But slowly, piece by piece, the puzzle started coming together. The dedication it took to solve this is just incredible, and it's a powerful reminder of why we tell these stories: to honor the victims and remember their names. If you agree, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments, what other cold cases do you think could finally be cracked with this amazing technology? In June of 2019, after years of tireless work, the breakthrough finally came. Barbara Ray Venter and her team had a name. The adult victim was Marlise Elizabeth Honeychurch. She was 24 and was last seen in November 1978. The two girls found with her were her daughters, Marie Elizabeth Vaughn, who was about 7, and Sarah Lynn McWaters, who was just a toddler. They had disappeared from California with a man named Terry Rasmussen. After more than 30 years, 3 of the 4 victims finally had their names back. They were no longer the Allenstown Jane Does. They were Marlise, Marie, and Sarah. But one mystery was left: the middle child. The little girl who was Rasmussen's biological daughter was still unidentified. For years, she was known only as the middle child, her identity a haunting question mark in a case filled with them. Her DNA told investigators her mother was likely from Texas, but the trail went cold right there. Still, investigators and genealogists refused to give up. They knew her name was out there, waiting to be found. That final answer came in September 2025. After an exhaustive 18-month-long effort by groups like the DNA Doe Project and Firebird Forensics, the last piece of the puzzle fell into place. The middle child was named Rhea Rasmussen. She was born in 1976, and her mother was a woman named Pepper Reed. Pepper, born in Texas in 1952, has been missing since the late 1970s and is now feared to be another one of Rasmussen's victims. With this final identification, one of the case's biggest mysteries was finally closed. All 4 victims, once known only to God, now had their names restored: Marlise, Marie, Sarah, and Rhea. The Bear Brook murders are a story of unimaginable cruelty, of a predator who moved through the world like a shadow, leaving devastation wherever he went. Terry Peter Rasmussen is suspected in at least 6 murders, but investigators think the real number could be much higher. He was a true chameleon, a man who shed identities as easily as a snake sheds its skin. Because he died in prison before he was ever linked to the Bear Brook case, he will never face justice for these specific crimes. But this case is also a story of incredible perseverance. It's about the investigators who never gave up, the citizen sleuths who dedicated their own time to the search, and the forensic scientists who pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Thanks to them, 4 victims who lay nameless for decades were finally given their identities back. Marlise Honeychurch, Marie Vaughn, Sarah McWaters, and Rhea Rasmussen are no longer just entries in a cold case file. They are remembered. And in the world of true crime, where so many stories end without answers, that is a powerful, hard-won victory.